Putin is putting things in order inside Russia. The first step towards nationalization has been taken. 30 years of reality is ending. In Russia, transformations are coming in the form of a change of elites. Other people will come. The historical significance of what is happening is undeniable. Skeptics may argue that nothing will change for the people. But this is an erroneous opinion. A lot has to change, including for us. Such a position is based precisely on the 30-year experience of the existence of a market Russia, when we observed the complete detachment of the top from the interests of the country. Being euphoric from the incredible opportunities that fell on them in the 90s, the elites allowed themselves to think that their love with the West would be eternal. But the batteries ran out. In recent years, they have begun to understand that they are needed only for the care of the Western world. Understanding began to come when the West began to increase the amount of tribute collected from the elite for the right to live in the civilized world. At first, there were bells in the form of claims against the owner of Rusal, when the Americans demanded total control over Russia's strategic aluminum industry. We can recall numerous lawsuits in U.S. courts, which our rich people invariably lost. While the West pinned down some businessmen, others hoped that they would get through. Didn't get through. In order to stay in the usual paradigms, the West, sliding into a complex crisis, stopped being satisfied with the steadily flowing flow of money from our elites and decided to set new payment terms. The West's disregard for all norms of decency in the process of demanding a larger share convinced our political leadership of the seriousness of its intentions. In December, Putin proposed to foreign partners to agree on maintaining the status quo. However, apparently relying on its own strength and the influence of the elite on the power circles of Russia, the West disdainfully ignored the reasonable initiative. Putin had no choice but to start solving a sluggish and very uncomfortable problem. The West reacted instantly, and totally, and not selectively. Restrictions on access to their foreign accounts, houses, yachts, planes for the Russian elite became an unpleasant surprise, and at the same time, the subject of the highest motivation to win everything back, curry favor with patrons and regain the attributes of a beautiful life selected by the West. Realizing that the pressure on the authorities will certainly be, and it will be very strong, Putin immediately began to restore order within Russia, to make decisions that should offset the efforts of the elites to infringe on the interests of the country in the interests of the West. Putin was forced, we are not deluding ourselves, finally began to do what should have been done a long time ago, as adequate and responsible politicians and ordinary citizens have been saying for many years at every corner. The president signed a decree banning the export of foreign currency from the country in cash in excess of $10,000. Significant restrictions are also imposed on electronic transfers and the crediting of money by Russians to foreign accounts. The exit of foreigners from national assets is limited. Simply put, foreigners will not be able to withdraw funds from our market that they have invested in Russian projects. Temporarily, of course. And the most interesting thing is that the state begins to pick up the assets of the elite. The government will allocate 1 trillion rubles from the NWF for the purchase of securities of Russian corporations. It is not yet known whether we are talking about the acquisition of shares on the stock market or the repurchase of securities of non-public companies, but this is not particularly important. To put it simply, as a result of financial assistance to large representatives of the business community, the shares of the largest enterprises after their redemption for budget money, in theory, should become state property. At the very least, make them controlled by the state. It is too early to say whether this can be considered as the first steps towards nationalization, but it very much seems that this is what is happening. The fact is that the process in the economy, when there is a full or partial repurchase of assets of enterprises owned by private individuals, is called nationalization. This seems incredible, but the circumstances have developed so unexpectedly now. The government cannot afford to take risks with such a strong and influential, and most importantly, pro-Western economic bloc. It is beneficial to the population that neither the president nor the elite have any opportunity to turn back in principle. That's why, without any irony, we should say thank you to the West. Now the elites are confused, but this is short-lived. They will soon wake up and begin an active struggle for their usual place under the sun, although they should hardly count on success. The course of history cannot be reversed. In general, transformations are coming in the future of Russia. As always, not thanks, but in spite, because none other than Putin has nurtured those who can now become an obstacle to his power. Again, the conflict of the elites is good for us. Changes will definitely occur, because their increased influence has become an obstacle not only to the development, but also to the existence of the Russian state. It was bound to happen sooner or later. It makes no sense to bring others in their place. The same urgent transformation of the internal political and internal economic systems is needed, and the involvement of new, state-oriented people in the leadership of the country. No one has time. Relations with the West are spoiled for many years to come, so there is hope that we will not wait long for the emergence of healthy forces in our society to rebuild the system.